Hi, I came across this. Oh, it's the 20th. It's the 20th of December 2016. Um, I came across this news here, which was published actually also on the ATG website, that there's an increasing rate of chemsex related deaths from GHB, and that made me think, especially about chemsex. I never quite made. You know what chemsex is? Chemsex is when you use drugs and have sex with other people. Drug fueled orgies. Methadone, weed, marijuana, GHB, crystal, and slamming when you inject these drugs rather than snort them. Um, Poppers, which is one of the most harmful things, but whatever. Um, and risky sexual practices, unprotected sex, fisting, um, toys. So it's chemsex. Now, what made me think was, that we started this whole conversation about chemsex within the ATG and the HIV community with Siegfried Schwarze from Germany 3.5 years ago. He was the first one to to him out, talk to me about this, and I was already an active substance user and very much part of this whole chemsex circle in in Budapest. So I was a regular patron at parties, and I also organized parties in my own home. Um, and I never actually thought that I had any problem with it, and I always thought that I was a controlled user, which then I think I wasn't, but that's a different story. So I realized when Ziggy Schwarze spoke about this that this could perhaps be interesting for the entire community of people living with HIV, that this is something that's happening in the community and we should talk about it. So that was when we started, um, and then it went on, and we could introduce this topic into the scientific discourse, and it became part of research with the European AIDS Clinical Society and with 5016 Street with David Stewart, who does some tremendous work, and his colleagues Marta Boffito and also then Kane Race from Australia, who did and has done and is still doing incredible work around the theoretical framing and interpretation and understanding of why gays use drugs for sex. So, and then this whole thing became, it became a thing. So it, rather than being a taboo that swept under the carpet, this became a topic for the scientific discourse and for research, which was actually my initial objective when I tried to bring this onto the agenda. And it also helped me to gradually move away from this whole thing, and I have been clean for many months now. Actually, I stopped partying this January, and then I was to one party during the year, and then I just don't go. But that's a different story. Um, but I thought naively that this thing is over, that this is okay. We've put this into the discourse, and then people will slowly realize, and also that this is a very different pattern of substance use from what we and harm reduction organizations are accustomed to. So the new harm reduction services or a new approach to harm reduction is needed, because oftentimes chemsexers, people using or engaging in chemsex, do not identify as drug users. I didn't identify as a drug user for many years until I realized that I was in trouble. So you need very different harm reduction services, and when I use or when I see, sorry, when I read or when I see that it's still on the increase, especially with GHB, you know that you should not just, I mean, if you take GHB, you should be very careful, and you should dose it very carefully, and you should not just stop it, but tighter it down, so gradually reduce the dose that you take, because if you just stop it, then you may die, and that's why people die. So it's not, it's just, and you know, my biggest problem is that in my region, in Central Europe, it's so easy to access drugs, but then harm reduction services are faltering, crumbling, because the state doesn't support them, and it's just becoming worse and worse. So I don't see a chance. And you know, I also could say, okay, I could go to parties and to do like this very practical, hands-on harm reduction, but I can't, because I don't feel strong enough to be in a party and not party. I mean, not take drugs and not engage in sex. I just don't feel strong enough for that. So what you would call, like, you know, clear guides or nurses who could take care of the patrons, the chemsexers. I just can't see a solution for that. So it's a real concern. It's a real concern. It goes beyond my personal journey. It's a lot more about harm reduction rather than the abolitionist approach. Anyway, so you give me advice. What do you think we can do in Central Europe? Because the Chemsex Forum in London did not give much guidance on that, however useful that event was earlier this year. And you can read the reports on the internet. Yeah, so give me advice. What can be done? Challenging. See you tomorrow.